Tonight, KTSM presents the second installment of a three-part series. It documents how drug cartels are spreading terror in Juarez neighborhoods and making their presence felt in both El Paso and southern New Mexico. Thank you for choosing KTSM 9 News at 10. I'm Andy Morgan. Border Report's Julian Resendez examines the two faces of Juarez. We do want to warn you, some of the images you'll see could be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is Juarez, Mexico, a city where workers of U.S.-run manufacturing companies assemble wire harnesses for automakers, computer boards for Asian clients, and medical equipment used in hospitals and doctors' offices all over America. Juarez also is a medical tourism destination. Juarez city leaders describe their community of 1.5 million people as hardworking and visitor-friendly. They say their city often gets a bad rap from U.S. media, who exaggerate the violence. Some tell me they feel safer in Juarez than in U.S. cities like New York or Chicago. But outside the tourist stops and the affluent neighborhoods, Mexican authorities themselves treat much of Juarez as if it were a war zone. Military vehicles with armed National Guard soldiers patrol the streets 24/7. State and municipal police often go out in caravans at night. They set up roadside checkpoints and drive through high crime areas. Once the soldiers are gone, the bad actors take over. Juarez has now surpassed 2,200 homicides in the past 2 years. Former Chihuahua State criminologist Oscar Maynez explains why well-to-do Juarezes and residents of the less affluent areas called colonias have a different perception of what's going on in their city.
There are areas where certain criminal activity is tolerated, where you can get drugs, there's prostitution and any kind of these illicit activities, as long as these activities don't go into the more affluent areas where there's commerce, tourism, and it's kind of like a pact between these different groups with the authorities, with the criminal groups. So these are the lines you don't cross.
But those lines are crossed all too often. August 11 of last year became known as Black Thursday. It began with a shooting inside the prison that left 2 inmates dead. It quickly spilled onto the streets of Juarez, with members of rival gangs killing 9 people and setting fire to several cars and convenience stores. The fight between 2 factions of the Sinaloa cartel resumed at the prison this past New Year's Day. It left 17 people dead, including 10 police officers. The target of the attack, Mexicali's gang leader Ernesto Piñon, also known as El Neto, escaped. He was gunned down by police a few days later. Lines also were crossed in June of last year. Armed gunmen went into a Denny's restaurant in Juarez and shot 2 men and 2 women dead in broad daylight. A chilling security video shows customers lay their heads on tables, hoping not to be shot. Chihuahua Attorney General Cesar Jauregui insists Juarez is safe for visitors and for law-abiding Mexicans.
You can see a city full of life, with hotels practically at 100% occupancy, with restaurants full, with economic activity in full swing, with lots of businesses wanting to come to Juarez, open their doors, and create jobs.
But the residents of the other Juarez, the one hurting for more police protection, the one where most of the bodies are found, beg to differ. Claudia Gutierrez is a mom who lives in a neighborhood where a man was gunned down 2 weeks ago, just after dark.
It's sad to see so many people lose their lives. Sometimes they take innocent people too. It affects us as residents and as a society. We cannot go out in peace, and we don't feel safe even at home.
Residents say the problem is not so much the trafficking of drugs to the United States, but the widespread sale of drugs within Juarez itself. A gang recruits young men and women to sell drugs. Then another gang comes to forcefully take over the new market. They go into places known as tienditas or little stores and kill rivals and customers alike. The bottom line is, neither Juarez authorities nor the Mexican government are really fighting the cartels, according to Maynez.
In Mexico, not just in Ciudad Juarez or in Chihuahua, neither the state nor the city has the capability to confront organized crime. You need like a national, like a federal strategy. Just a matter of resources, just a matter of personnel, the state or the city, even if they were completely uncorrupted, they couldn't do it. And we know that there's some involvement with local police authorities, all levels, with organized crime. So no, we cannot accept it, but as today I haven't seen anything that will tell me that neither the state or the city or the federal government are doing anything to try to control.
Officials at the highest level of government portray Mexico as a country where crime is going down, and where fentanyl, the drug that is killing tens of thousands of Americans each year, is not produced.
In Mexico, there are labs, kitchens, where methamphetamines are being produced. There must be some type of arrival to Mexico of fentanyl, and yes, it goes to the United States. But I insist, Mexico does not produce fentanyl. I want to make that clear.
Members of the Sinaloa cartel, including the sons of jailed drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, are under indictment in U.S. federal court for manufacturing and trafficking fentanyl from Mexico to the United States. Andrés Manuel López Obrador became the president of Mexico in 2018. He promised to bring crime and violence down through a strategy he called hugs, not bullets. It was a de-escalation plan to the aggressive tactics favored by former President Felipe Calderón. That path led Mexico to unprecedented levels of violence from 2008 through 2012. But data from the Mexican government shows homicides have reached an all-time high during the López Obrador administration. In September, López Obrador blamed the violence on his predecessors.
They say, look, there's too much violence over here, but look at how they left it to us. And what are we doing? 17% less now, when they made it rise 200%.
Because of the pace of Mexican action or inaction against the cartels, some American politicians want to label these groups as terrorist organizations. That would give the U.S. a green light to go after them wherever they are.
But we are going to designate the cartels to be foreign terrorist organizations or something similar to that. And we're going to authorize the use of deadly force. If someone in the drug cartels is sneaking fentanyl across the border when I'm president, that's going to be the last thing they do. We're going to shoot them stone cold dead.
Political analysts say such bills won't get much traction in the present Congress due to the partisan divide, but that could change if the Republicans retake the White House and both houses of Congress a year from now. Reporting from Juarez, Mexico, this is Julián Reséndez.